Here's what I'm doing today. This is my cheesecake project for the weekend. What I'm going to do is take Gretchen's lemon curd cheesecake, also the vanilla cheesecake recipe, combine the two, make some adjustments, and make a Biscoff cheesecake. So I'm going to make, instead of golden Oreos and coconut in the lemon curd cheesecake crust, I'm going to do Biscoff cookies in the crust. And then I'm going to mix, instead of lemon curd into the cheesecake batter, I'm going to mix Biscoff into the cheesecake batter. I'm also going to cut the recipe in half and try it in this little personal size 6x2 cake pan, non-spring form, because she uses that baking grease that she makes, which I have, and then it just pops right out. All right, so I'll film it as I go along, and then we'll taste test it at the end. And if it's really good, then I guess you're going to have to make it. Alrighty? Let's go. Okay, so first thing you got to do is take a piece of parchment paper, if we're doing it the Gretchen way. Take your cake pan, put it down, trace around the bottom, because not only are you going to grease the pan with her baking grease, you're going to put a piece of parchment on the bottom as well of the pan inside after you grease it. I'll show you that. So I went in my fridge and I got the baking grease. Now I've had this for a while. She tells you the recipe how to make it. It's like equal parts of, I think it's butter, margarine, and shortening. I think you have to look on the site and see. But anyway, I just like, I think, half the recipe, because unless you're going to bake all the time, cheesecakes or whatever kind of cakes that uses her baking grease, you don't really need to have that much. So I have this little container of it that I keep in my brush, and whenever I bake it, and it'll stay for a while, I believe, like she said, 6 months or something in the refrigerator or something like that. So then you just grease the whole pan. So now that's greased, bottom, sides, all the way around. And you're going to take that parchment circle, and you're going to put it at the bottom of your pan. It'll stick on there easy because it's got the grease on the bottom of the pan. So you grease first, then put that on, and then she tells you to grease it a little more on top of the parchment paper. So we're going to do that now too. And that's it. Okay, so now the pan is greased, the parchment's greased, everything's ready to go. We're going to put our crust together first, so we're going to do our cookies now. Okay, so, I forgot to mention, I have my oven preheating at 350 to start, so that way it'll be ready by the time I get the crust ready. So anyway, I'm taking these Biscoff cookies, okay? Now the recipe, full size, calls for 1 1/4 cup of cookie crumbs, but considering I'm going to half the recipe, so I'm going to do about 3/4 cups. It's not exact, but close enough. So I'm going to take my little mini chopper. Rather than dragging out the whole big food processor, I can use my little chopper. I don't think I've ever had one. It's a pretty damn good cookie. Anyway, back to cooking. Take some cookies. Now I'm going to do 3/4 cup, so I'm going to do some and measure and do some and measure until I get exactly what I need. Alright? Okay, so I have my 3/4 cup of crumbs, Biscoff cookie crumbs. It says, for a full-size recipe, it says 3 tablespoons of butter. I'm doing 1 1/2 of unsalted butter. I'm going to pour that right in there with my crumbs, and I'm going to stick it right on my brand new shiny, let me turn that, put that right on my brand new shiny KitchenAid mixer I got for my birthday, which I love. So let me take a okay, so there it is, ready to mix the crumbs and the, we're going to mix the breadcrumbs and the butter together for our crust. Okay, so the crumbs are ready. So I'm going to put those right into our non-spring form greased pan. Make sure we get all the crumbs out of there. Okay. Scooch them down a little bit, and then I'm going to press them into the pan. Make sure they're nice and pressed in. Okay, and there's my crust pressed in. Try to make it as even as possible. And it's going to go in the oven now for like 15 minutes or something like that first. While that's baking and getting set, I'll start on the filling. Okay, so now we're going to start on the filling part. So So I have my KitchenAid mixer here all ready to go. Now, the recipe calls for 3 blocks of cream cheese, but again, because I'm halving it, I'm only going to do 1.5 blocks of cream cheese rather than 3, obviously. So you just cut everything in half. Yeah, we hate these packets that you got to get the cream cheese out of. They're really annoying because then you got to scrape them down afterwards. Okay, so that's that. That's the 1.5 cream cheese. So it says to do that. Soften that. It has been sitting out because everything has to be at room temperature according to Gretchen. So we're mixing that, putting that, and then when that's softened enough, we'll start adding our sugar. Okay, so we've been mixing our cream cheese. Now we're going to add our sugar. It calls for in the full-size recipe a full cup of sugar, so we're doing 1/2. Sorry, I keep reminding you that we're doing 1/2. I know it's kind of annoying after a while. So I'm going to add that in. We're going to let that mix up, and we'll get on to the next step. Okay, now we're going to add our eggs, one at a time. Only 2. Okay, one little mistake. I used the wrong thing on my mixer for this batter. I should have used this one, and I used the other one. So now I'm changing it because it's not mixing as well as I'd like it to. Okay, back in a minute. Okay, now in her original vanilla cheesecake recipe, which I made a couple times, she gave me the options of using 1/3 of a cup of sour cream or 1/3 of a cup of heavy cream. And the first time I made it, I chose one. And then the second time I made it, I actually put both in, just because I really wanted that light, fluffy cheesecake thing. So this one, I'm going to just do, because I'm adding the Biscoff instead of the lemon curd, I'm still going to add a 1/4 cup of sour cream, just to keep the light fluffiness of the cheesecake that I really like. Okay, so here's our sour cream. We're going to throw that right into the mix there. Okay, sour cream's it. Now for the Biscoff, it would be the same because I'm halving it. It would be a 1/4 cup of the Biscoff, but I'm just going to kind of eyeball it and put a good amount in there. Just because I really, like 2 nice tablespoons, because I really want the flavor of the Biscoff to come through on this cake. So 2 nice heaping tablespoons. Okay, so our batter's all mixed. Let's take it off of here. Let's get this thing out of here so we don't drip all over the place. Let's see. That's Biscoff, and that's cheesecake. Wow. Okay, so there's our crust out of the oven for about 12 minutes, I believe it was in there, okay? Maybe a little less. And I'm just going to pour my batter in. Okay, so there it is. It's kind of high up in the pan, which normally cheesecake I know isn't supposed to be that high up in the pan, so it may overflow. This is the normal pan that I use, which is a bigger pan. So since we're going to water bath our cheesecake anyway, even if it overflows a little bit, it'll go into the water. Okay? Let me just carefully add the water. Okay, so I water bathed it. And I'm going to put it in the oven now, and like I said, if it overflows a little bit, it'll at least go into the other pan and not all over my oven. Alrighty, we'll see it when it comes out. We'll keep an eye on it too. Okay, so we did the first half hour at 350 like she said, then we turned it down to 325 for the second half hour. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, it didn't overflow or anything. Perfect. Now we have to let it sit for another 15 minutes in there, and then we're good to go. There it is out of the oven. It's got a small little crack on the top, but that's alright. All in all, it looks like it bakes pretty well. So we'll let it cool down, and we'll refrigerate it, and then tomorrow will be the unveiling. Okay, so here we are. It's the next day. Take my cheesecake out of the refrigerator that I covered. As you can see, it's kind of separating from the sides, which will make it easier to pop it out, which is really good. But what we got to do is we got to heat up the sides and the bottom, because that loosens the bacon grease that's congealed again, obviously, from refrigerating because it's cold. And then it'll release right out. So let's do that. Just for a few seconds on each side. We'll keep it moving. You don't want to leave it somewhere where it's burning, and you know, you just kind of want to loosen the bacon grease that's on there. Okay. But make sure you use your mitts or something so that way you're not burning yourself. So that's all I'm kind of doing, is just keep it constantly moving. Okay. Okay. So now that it's warmed up a little bit, you can feel it's just a little warm, a little bit. What I'm going to do is take this knife and I'm going to go around the edges just to loosen, make sure that it's loosened up all the way around. Okay, look, the cheesecake's already spinning a little bit, which is telling me that it's loose. So it's definitely going to be ready to go. Okay, so then what we do is we take a plate and we invert it over the pan like that, and now we go like that. That's it. As you can see, look, as I'm taking this off, comes right out. No problem. Right out of the pan. But now we got to flip it back over. So you take another plate and voila. There's your released cheesecake. Okay? Now usually it's a lot smoother when you don't have a crust. I guess the crust makes it a little more harder to get out. But not, it was, you can see it wasn't even hard to get out at all. It came right out. So we're going to slice this, we're going to taste it, we're going to see what it's all about. Okay, so there's our finished mini cheesecake. So we're just going to, I'll just score it across the top here. So it tells me where the halfway point is. Because I'm just going to pull out a little piece just to try it first. Okay? Look at that, comes right out. Okay, let me get a plate. Put that right on the plate. Alrighty, there's our Biscoff cheesecake, or a little piece of it. Let's see what we got here. It seems, see the filling here seems very dense. It's very dense cheesecake. It's not really fluffy and light. It's interesting. I don't know if it scored the flavor that I was looking for. I mean, it is a good cheesecake, but I wish it was lighter and fluffier. So we're going to have to play with this one a little bit. Not bad, but not perfect yet. We'll work on it. You always got to keep trying. Keep trying and get it right. See you later.